The show. Thank you. I'd like to call this meeting to order at 6:40 p.m. And we will go ahead and get started with the Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Watson, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
Sure. Please stand. If you're able. Put your right hands over your heart. Ready, begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Well, I have to know the story.
Thank you, Mr. Watson.
To know the story. There's gotta be a story. I know,
Hey.
that's what I was gonna say. It's so lucky.
Okay, moving on to report of closed session action items. There are no action items to report on. And we will move on to approving the agenda for February 4th, 2025. Can I have a motion and a second, please?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to approval of the minutes from the regular meeting of the governing board for January 21st, 2025. Can I have a second or a motion, please?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any questions or comments? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Great. Any opposed? No? Thank you. Okay, we will start off with our Principals Award. Mr. Clement, would you please lead us in that?
Absolutely. Okay, so we are honoring our Principal Award winners tonight. And I'm going to read a little bit about what this award is about. And while I'm doing so, if our award winners can bring their award and come stand up here, we're going to make just a row of folks standing. So if you've got your award, go ahead and come on up. Don't be shy. We do have one person joining us via Zoom. If you are out there in Zoom, if you could use the raise your hand feature and we will pull you into the meeting so we can see you on the screen.
Sure.
No.
Okay, so as I read about each person and say your name, we're going to have you can step forward and give a little wave so everybody can see who you are, and we'll celebrate each person. As we wait for our person to be brought in there, once again, if you're online, oh, there they are. I see the hand. Great. No, it's not them. So we're looking for the. up here. A big round of applause. And if you guys can just hang on one moment and stay where you are, I'm going to turn it over to our board president for board comments.
Sure. And I'll turn it over to our board for comments.
All right, well, congratulations to all of you. Most of you, it seems like you're in sixth grade, going to be leaving us here very soon, but we're very grateful to you and very proud that such an amazing group of leaders will be representing us as you head into junior high and high school. Congratulations to all of you and your parents.
Congratulations to all of you. I know our principals have very keen eyes for recognizing some of our best students. So congratulations to all of you for this award, for your outstanding achievement, and most importantly, for being great role models for your peers. Thank you.
Congratulations to all of you. Clearly, you've done something to stand out and get noticed. And I love that the younger sibling cheered on. And it's just a reminder that you guys are indeed role models. And, you know, whether it's for younger siblings or just other kids, you know, you set the standard for them. So thank you.
I just want to echo everything that my colleagues have said. It's amazing and admirable to be nominated and win for your school. It gets even better as you get older. And I agree that it is a reflection of your parents. They must be doing something right. They are role models, and parents should be really, really proud of their children.
And just to close it off, congratulations, everybody. This is a really important award to receive because, you know, there are so many kids at your school and you really stood out to your principal. So you should be really proud of yourself for that. I agree that, you know, congratulations to the families, to the parents, to all the people that put the time and effort into making these kids great. We hope that you continue to do that, to show your leadership. And as you move on into junior high and high school, that you show, you know, other kids what, you know, how important it is to be a leader and to do the right thing. What I love about this award too is that it's not academic. It's not, you know, you're really good at reading. It's an overall, like, you're just a great kid. So congratulations, guys. Did everybody get their picture? Working on it? Okay. Everybody's good? Great. Yeah. This is a very special and important moment. So why don't we take just a 3-minute recess to give our parents an opportunity to get pictures with their student. And again, thank you for all the families that are here supporting their kids and for doing such a wonderful job with them. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. We are moving on to the public comment period of the agenda, and I will read our script for public comments. So advance written requests to address the board regarding agenda and non-agenda items, board bylaws 9320, 9322, and 9323. Each speak to the process used by the governing board to allow for public comment during its meeting. The bylaws are in compliance with the Brown Act and other applicable law. Board Bylaw 9323 specifically outlines the process for members of the public to address the governing board on agenda and non-agenda items that are within its subject matter jurisdiction. Members of the public wishing to address the governing board are asked to do the following prior to the start of the public comment section of the meeting agenda to ensure that appropriate time is allotted for all interested speakers and topics. The speaker must either complete a speaker card for each item they desire to speak on and/or notify the assistant to the superintendent of each item if attending the meeting in person. This notification is requested to allow the board president to consistently implement public comment guidelines provided in Board Bylaw 9323. Members of the public wishing to make public comment via telephone or virtual meeting software must notify the assistant to the superintendent via email not later than 4:30 p.m. on the day of the scheduled meeting to ensure that the person has the same opportunity to address the board under Board Bylaw 9323 as those who are in attendance. Each speaker is allowed 3 minutes per topic for public comment. The total time allotted for each topic is 20 minutes. Depending on the number of persons wishing to be heard on a single topic, the governing board may adjust the time allotted for each speaker or the total time allocated to the topic issue. The president of the board may take a poll of speakers for and against the topic issue to determine how best to allot time on each topic issue. Members of the public who wish to address the board do so either in person or via Zoom. A speaker may read a statement from an individual not in attendance. However, their allotted speaking time will not be extended to read such a statement. A timer visible to all attendees will be used to manage time during public comment. Any speaker who exceeds their allotted time will have their mic cut off. To ensure that non-English speakers receive the same opportunity to directly address the board, any member of the public who utilizes a translator shall be provided at least twice the allotted time to address the board unless simultaneous translation equipment is used to allow the board to hear the translated public testimony simultaneously. Please remember that state law prevents the board from acting on any matter not listed on the agenda or from discussing any such matter in detail. That is a mouthful. Okay. Moving on. Our first speaker is Tammy Messina. And this is regarding future board meetings, item X.
I'd like to start by thanking the board for hearing the many concerns from both staff and public regarding behaviors in the classroom and for facilitating the special board meeting scheduled for tomorrow to discuss the issues. I look forward to hearing the district's current response to this challenging issue, as well as the specific steps the district has taken over the past few months to provide some immediate relief and support to the amazing teachers and staff that we have on the school sites. So I thank you all and I look forward to seeing you tomorrow.
Ingrid Boyston.
Good evening. I'm Ingrid Boydston. I'm sure some of you are wondering what in the world is she going to talk about tonight. So rest assured that I have no desire to stem the flow of the forward progress that we have made on the behavior issue here in Saugus. Neither do I want to lose the momentum. So I thought it would be a very good idea to do a very brief recap and then a look into the future from what it looks like from this side of the dais. So having said that, last fall, I had to make a terrible decision. I literally had to decide whether I was going to speak up or quit. Because if you see a problem and you don't say something, you are the problem. And I was beginning to feel that way. I knew of situations throughout the district where children, because of extreme behaviors, were in danger physically, mentally, emotionally, educationally. I was beginning to feel complicit. So it was one of the hardest things I've ever done, but myself and many others got the courage to come up and speak before you. And I hope you understand how hard it was. That was terrible. That was one of the worst things I've ever had to do. But the good news is that you did listen. And I'm so happy. That very first night, I listed 6 possible ways we could start looking at this problem. And to date, we have begun addressing already 3 of them. And best of all, Dr. Hawkins hosted the Behavior Council the other day, and it was great. There are teachers from every school in the district included, and I see what all was great about it. Oh, a special note to those teachers. If you're watching, please stay on the council. If you're seasoned like I am, you have an understanding, but if you're new, you might not realize what an opportunity this is. This can significantly change the way your career is every day for the rest of your teaching career. An opportunity to provide the type of enriching education you dream about in the environment you wish you had. So stay on the council, please. All right. So in addition to that, Dr. Hawkins has assured me that the council will continue to grow to include educational assistants and special ed teachers and administrators. I think that's all so important. Also, everything is on the table. PBIS is on the table. I'm so happy. SEL is on the table to look at. We were allowed to say what we were concerned about and to share our ideas for solutions. So I think we're headed in a great direction. I'm just really thankful for all of that. Now, tomorrow is another special board meeting about this behavior situation in particular. And I do have some very specific questions that I need to ask. And so I hope you know it's not because I'm angry or upset. It's because I want to get the best solution possible. If you go to the doctor and she says, "What's wrong?" you better tell her everything or your treatment plan isn't going to be effective. Sometimes, like Anna Grease has pointed out many times, you have to ask the hard questions to get to the complete answer. So know where I'm coming from. Now, some people tell me, "I sure hope you don't think this is going to be easy." I don't know how easy it's going to be, but I do know this. I think if we all pull together, if we pull together instead of pulling apart, I don't think there's anything we can't do. So on that note, as always, thank you for listening and God bless you.
Karen Frost.
So thank you for the opportunity to address you. I'm not going to be overly redundant because some of the things that I wanted to say have already been said. I just again wanted to talk about the special meeting tomorrow. I reached out to a bunch of my teacher friends in the district, and I was kind of surprised that many of them didn't know about it, and they may be listening tonight. So I want anybody that's listening online or in the room that wasn't aware of this meeting to know how important this is, because this is something that we've been talking about for months and months and months. So I'm really, really optimistic to hear Mrs. Boydston say that we're making forward progress. There's still a lot of work to do, and I'm a little disappointed when I reached out to a bunch of teachers and they said, "I didn't even know there was a meeting." This is something that I think should have been just advertised. Like, this is, like Mrs. Boydston said, we're making forward progress. So let's just invite everybody into the conversation so that everybody knows and can have a voice at the table and see the forward progress continue. So anybody that's listening, please be aware of this meeting, participate, share your voices, share your experiences so that we can continue moving forward. And let's just make sure that everybody is aware of this so that we can continue to see the resolutions that's best for our district and our kids. Thank you.
Emily Lytle Painter.
Hi. Good evening. My name is Emily, and I'm the parent of a child in your district's dual language immersion program at Highlands. It's the only magnet program in Saugus. Language immersion promises significant benefits. I know you know this, and our families know it. That's why so many of us drive from across Santa Clarita every day, as you'll see in tonight's demographic report. We have all made a significant commitment to this program. I told my mom I wasn't going to cry. But right now, it is painfully clear that the district is not making the same commitment to us. Our children are not receiving the education that they were promised. And as a result, multiple families are considering pulling out. They no longer trust the district to deliver the quality education that our children deserve. After a chaotic start to the year, my child's class has another long-term substitute. They're not the first or even the second class to struggle with a shortage of permanent teachers at Highlands. This is unacceptable. Young learners, especially those in non-native language, need consistency. A study from the National Institute for Early Education Research confirms that stable teacher-student relationships are critical for language development and academic success. And research on dual language immersion further confirms the continuous exposure to fluent speakers is essential for proper language acquisition. Without fully qualified Spanish immersion certified teachers, our children are falling behind. We will not let this happen, so you cannot afford to let this continue. The district must take immediate action to help our school. If this signature program is truly a priority, the district must invest in recruiting and retaining qualified teachers by offering competitive pay. Anything less is a failure to meet your own commitment and will drive the families away. Additionally, the district must plan for a Spanish language TK class after the program finishes its growth to 6th grade next year. The research is clear. Children who begin a second language before age 5 develop stronger bilingual skills, better literacy rates, and long-term cognitive advantages. The American Council on the Teaching of Foreign Languages and the Center for Applied Linguistics confirm that early exposure is essential for success. Expanding the program to include a TK class in 2027 is not a luxury. It is vital to the program's success. We as parents have upheld our end of the bargain, and it's time for the district to fulfill its responsibility to us, to our children, and to the school. Thank you.
Kathy Lund.
Hi, I think I'm also in the category of what will she say next? I really didn't prepare anything tonight because I had kind of a fun thing that happened. A lot of times when I speak before you, it's been kind of a thing that's been happening, an issue that I've been concerned about and kind of advocating for, I'll say. And so I had a project that I was advocating for the preschool program. They used to be located at Santa Clarita, and before Santa Clarita closed in June of 2024, the preschool was relocated in December with most of the things that they had for the preschool program. And there was a few items that got left behind, and Mr. Heinlein had made arrangements for the teachers to come back and look for them. But one of the things that got lost in the shuffle was a Girl Scout Gold Award. At our school, we've been fortunate that we've had several kids that have come back to us as seniors in high school working on either their Girl Scout Gold Award or their Boy Scout Eagle project, and there's several of these projects that benefited our school. One of them was rolling planter bins, and they've been kind of floating around the school as the school is being dismantled. And I got the news from one of the staff members at the preschool today that Mr. Heinlein had arranged for them to be delivered to the school. She showed me a picture. They're there. The intent was to help teachers enrich and expand their classroom, and especially being rolling, that means they can be relocated around the campus at Bouquet. They can be put in places either for the season or for the particular classrooms. They can be grouped. There's a lot of things that can be done with them, which is exactly what the student that did this wanted. She was benefited from our memorial garden that we had at Santa Clarita, and that's Mr. Heinlein's helping to identify some of those things that are still on campus. But this one particular girl spent a lot of time in the memorial garden when she couldn't hack 6th grade. She helped out with a parent volunteer teaching younger kids, and her closing words in her Girl Scout statement was she thought it was important that kids know how to take care of living things. And that hit me so hard because I thought, what a beautiful thing for an older student to pass on, not just when she was a 6th grader, but to feel so strongly about it that she came back. And by Mr. Heinlein moving these bins, they get to keep on helping children learn how to take care of living things. So thank you so much.
Okay, and last comment card is Tammy Messina regarding organizational item 1, approved minutes.
I'd like to start this by recognizing the exceptional job that Mrs. Dahl always does in preparing the agendas and minutes. And what I'm about to say is in no way a reflection on you, Mrs. Dahl, as I'm aware that the contents in the minutes you prepare are done at either Dr. Hawkins or the board's direction. So I thank you for your service. To the board and Dr. Hawkins, my concern is with the lack of content recorded in the minutes. I know you know that already from my emails. When it comes to keeping a record of what has transpired in the meetings, I know that you're doing what is legally required, but is that really you giving your best service to the district and the public? Over the past 2 years, the minutes have been whittled down from 2023, where there was enough information to glean a good understanding of what transpired at the meeting and the deliberations and concerns of the admin staff and the public, to our current 2025 minutes, which are little more than a rehash of the agenda, with vote counts taken and summaries of board comments and official reports. It's my understanding that board recordings, meeting recordings, whether audio or video, are only retained for 30 days from the date of the meeting. That means that the official minutes are the only historical record that both the district and the public has of the business and deliberations that were conducted at the meetings. Boards and administrations come and go, and there should be a historical record of what took place with some context as to why the decisions were made. And I urge you as a board to review and revise your policy on meeting recordings, meeting records, to ensure that you leave some breadcrumbs for your successors, be it in the minutes or in the audio or in a video format. As a matter of public trust and transparency, as well as good governance, I would hope that you do what you tell your students to do and always do your best, not just enough to get by or what's legally required, but what's truly best for the public that you're serving and the students. And as a last closing statement, I would like to point out that this agenda item comes before public comments, and I should have been given an opportunity to speak to it before it was voted on. Every agenda item for regular meetings shall provide an opportunity for members of the public to directly address the governing board on any item of interest to the public before or during the governing board's consideration of the item. That's in both the government code and the ed code, and that did not happen for me tonight. But thank you for listening.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to our Saugus Teachers Association, Ms. Linda Valdez.
Yep, you're good. We have to balance a little bit. Okay. All right. Good evening, board members, cabinet, colleagues, community members, and families. Congratulations to this evening's many award recipients. We are very proud of you. What a busy couple of weeks we've had. We'd like to take a moment to acknowledge the many families who have suffered from the recent fires and more. When events like this happen, it's a reminder to us all about the importance of prioritizing that in our lives, which is of greatest value. And as educators, the safety and welfare of our students, families, and school community is at the forefront. As challenging times are upon us and the uncertainty of programs, funding, and ever-changing budgets, we are digging deep and keeping a careful eye on local and national news updates to stay informed. Our Saugus Teachers Association, as part of CTA's Power Up Locals, has joined more than 77,000 educators serving 1 million students in 32 school districts across California, with combined revenues exceeding $22 billion in the We Can't Wait campaign. This is an unprecedented coordinated bargaining effort. Together, we share a powerful vision for California's future: fully staffed schools, competitive wages and benefits to attract and retain quality teachers, and safe, stable schools where every child can thrive. Our executive board had the opportunity to meet with our recently elected Congressman George Whitesides, and we will be meeting with Senator Suzette Valladares and Assemblywoman Pilar Schiavo in the coming weeks as we build relationships with our legislators and discuss important topics including funding, IDEA, special education, and recent initiatives. We are in the midst of negotiations with lots to consider as we look at the prospect of a universal dismissal and changes to our schedules. We are grateful to the district and our bargaining team for thinking outside the box and for creatively looking at ways to meet the needs of our students while at the bargaining table. The newly formed Behavior Council met for the first time this past week. Participants had an opportunity to look at and discuss an outline of topics that will be addressed over the upcoming weeks and months. Per the agenda for tomorrow's special board meeting, some of that information will be provided to those in attendance. We look forward to working collaboratively with the district as we continue negotiating our contract, working conditions, and ways to better meet the needs of our students. Thank you.
Okay, moving on to our CSEA, Ms. Sylvia Arnon.
Good evening, Cabinet, board members, and community. Our heartfelt congratulations go out to the wonderful student recipients of the Principal Award tonight. Thank you for being you. Classified employees have begun 2025 with enthusiasm and dedication to their jobs, but with many challenges. We are grateful to everyone who went above and beyond to help during the Hughes fire. Thank you, Dr. Hawkins and her team, for promptly taking action and addressing our concerns. We thank our employees who continue to exemplify excellence and resilience. We are also excited to have signed an MOU allowing our campus supervisors to continue working a continuous 5-hour shift for the next school year. We thank the district and STA for their collaboration. Our campus supervisors ensure the safety of all students on the playground. They promote a positive atmosphere on campus and during drop-off and pickup times. They are essential to our schools. Employee safety in challenging classrooms continues to be an ongoing issue within our district. We are happy that the district is taking measures to look into possible solutions. We must have continuous support in place for staff working in these classrooms. It is unjust for paraeducators to work in classrooms where they know that at any given time they may be injured. Paraprofessionals put themselves at risk to keep students protected. Their physical and mental health must be a priority in order to maintain high-quality learning and service for students. Classified employees continue to feel unsupported and look forward to change. Negotiations are in full swing. We surveyed our members a few months ago on what was most important to them. Longevity recognition was overwhelmingly the top priority for our classified employees over all of the categories. Classified employees have 6 steps on their pay scale. This means that after 5 years of service, they reach the maximum hourly pay rate for each job classification. Our longevity is 10% total after 24 years of service. If we add the COLA increases within the past 2 negotiated years, 2022 and 23 alone, this amounts to 10%, the 10% we receive after 24 years. Okay. This means that the value of our classified paychecks continues to decrease with time. However, the comments made by our classified employees regarding longevity were for the most part not about money. The majority do not feel appreciated nor feel there is a chance for growth. Growth in the workplace enhances personal motivation and job satisfaction. It boosts job retention, which continues to be an issue. We look forward to the district taking steps towards acknowledging the worth of its classified employees over time. We have brought longevity to the negotiation table multiple times, and it always has been denied. Our classified employees long to feel of equal importance within the district. We have seen many positive changes and acknowledge the district's efforts of inclusion and cooperation. More needs to be done. Who are we if not a reflection of how we treat others? We are asking for equal opportunities of growth and validation. We are asking for accountability in keeping us safe in challenging classrooms. We are asking to be equally acknowledged and heard. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to our Saugus Administrators Association, Mrs. Ardrella Hamilton.
Easing this up a tad. Good evening, President Garibay, esteemed board members, Superintendent Hawkins, and Cabinet. My name is Ardrella Hamilton. I am the very proud principal of Plum Canyon Elementary School.
It is an honor to stand here before you tonight on behalf of Saugus Administrators Association. We celebrate the incredible students and their families who have been selected for the Principal's Award this month. This recognition is a testament to their hard work, perseverance, commitment to excellence. Congratulations to each and every one of them. I also want to take a moment to express our deep love for the dedication that our classified and certificated staff members, to all of them across our district. Your unwavering dedication, resilience, and compassion make a difference in the lives of our students every single day. In moments of challenges like during the Hughes fire, we saw firsthand the strength and our unity. Together, we supported our school communities, ensuring safety, stability, care for each and every one of ourselves, as well as our students. As we move over, remain focused on the great things happening in the Saugus Union School District. Our students are currently engaged in the second iReady diagnostic assessment, helping us track their growth and guide their instruction. The SEL screener allows us to better understand this and support our students' social and emotional needs. We just had the Great Kindness Challenge last week, and that helps foster a culture of compassion and inclusion on our school campuses. February also marks the celebration of Black History Month, an important time to recognize and honor the contributions and achievements of Black leaders throughout history. Additionally, our early learners in kindergarten through second grade are demonstrating their literacy through their BPST assessment and key measures to ensure foundational reading success. Through all of these initiatives, one thing remains clear: together, we achieve more. As Helen Keller once said, "Alone, we can do so little. Together, we can do so much." And as we celebrate Black History Month, I thought about my absolute favorite quote from Dr. Martin Luther King. And it's evidence because it's actually on my signature page when you see my email go out. But the function of education is to teach one to think intensively and to think critically. Intelligence plus character. That is the goal of true education. His words continue to inspire our work in shaping not only strong scholars, but also compassionate, responsible citizens. May we teach this, but more importantly, may we model this, and may we be this for the next generation and to our wonderful students of Saugus Union School District. Have an amazing evening.
Thank you. Next up, we have a Mrs. Brianna Chavez, PTA Treasurer for Plum Canyon Elementary School. And she is representing our district parent leader organizations.
I'm going to lower this. Very different heights. So hello, thanks everyone for being here. I have only been a part of the PTA for about a year. I've been at Plum Canyon Elementary for 2, and it's just been amazing to be able to see how much we can do when we work together with admin as well as parents, because it's all for the benefit of the kids. One of the biggest things that I've really enjoyed is learning more about not only how the schools work, but what the kids are doing in the classroom, as well as how we can benefit from working together for the kids, which I already said. Obviously, I'm a little nervous. I jumped at the chance to be able to do all kinds of things with the community. I'm part of the wellness committee as well as secretary for the PTA. I also like to do a lot of creative things. So as far as the family dance, any of the events that we have at school, we really want to push getting the most for our children. And it's our goal as the PTA to obviously support our administration as well as the teachers and classifieds. And I really think that Plum Canyon does a great job doing that. And I look forward to doing more of that. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to representative from the Child Development Programs, Ms. Mary Mann.
Thank you. Good evening, board members and cabinet. Our expanded learning program continues to enhance student experiences with engaging opportunities. This month, preschool students began a weekly music and mindful class. This supports their social emotional growth. Additionally, our state preschool teachers attended a professional development workshop on the upcoming state-required classroom assessment scoring system, CLASS. They gained valuable insights and strategies to create a more engaging and effective learning environment. These initiatives reflect our commitment to high-quality early learning experience that support both our students and educators. Thank you very much for your support.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to Superintendent Cabinet Reports.
Good evening, everyone. I again would like to congratulate the students for the Principals Award. That is a very exciting award, and we have so many well-deserving students for all of the awards in our district. So congratulations again to them. I would just like to share that February 1st, our open enrollment to new families, and specifically our littles, our TK, and I say K because some families missed that TK cutoff, but that enrollment, that new registration did open. I do have a board item tonight that talks about transfers as well, so I will save that piece for then. But if you have, we always send out our Parent Square post, but if you happen to be a family who doesn't have a kiddo enrolled and you know about them, you could just let them know. So they have the opportunity to get all those documents in and enroll.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Mrs. Berries. Mr. Clement?
All right, good evening, everyone. Just a couple of quick thank yous. I want to thank everyone for the response and cooperation during the Hughes fire. Both as we had our leadership in a couple of different places working together, and as all of the folks within the district reacted, and specifically within my department, our TOSTA team didn't hesitate without a beat. They were out the door and going to support even without being asked. So I thank everybody for how cooperatively and how quickly they responded. I also want to thank Sky Blue Mesa in particularly, because that immediate Saturday afterwards, we had a Saturday school scheduled, and they eagerly wanted to be open, and we supported that. Every single staff member, I think, that day was a Sky Blue Mesa teacher, and that is recognized, appreciated, and it was one of our most successful Saturday schools to date. Followed by Plum Canyon also incorporating an EL component into this past Saturday. So the two Saturdays combined, I think, are our two successful Saturdays so far. So to both principals and staff, I say thank you, and we appreciate that. I also want to just acknowledge our DLI parent that spoke today, and just to acknowledge that our HR department and our Ed Services, my department, we're working on the very things that you mentioned. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Clement. Dr. Stevenson?
I just want to say thank you to those classified, certificated, and CDP staff members that did jump in to help out and cover classes and cover positions for people that were evacuated during the fire. I know Dr. Hawkins had sent out an email thanking them also. And then congratulations to our principal award winners.
Thank you. Mr. Heimer?
I just wanted to thank Mrs. Lund for her comments this evening. When we started doing a lot of our facility projects, it became very clear that we have a lot of memorials at many of our sites, and we really had no way of tracking them. So many years ago, we had created a Google form for sites to complete so that we could have a catalog of those memorials and know what we needed to be aware of when we had a project, maybe disturb them. But I do believe we need to send that form to everybody at the school site because you really need to have somebody with a historical perspective in order to capture really the reasoning on the memorial so that we can honor it into the future. So I think I just wanted to make sure that she's thanked for doing that.
Thank you. Dr. Hawkins?
Yeah, I want to congratulate our students. I always wish they were here to hear that, but we do congratulate you for your amazing work. We have amazing students. And it was interesting that most of them were sixth graders tonight. A heartfelt thanks. I know I've already sent it out in email, but I'm going to say it verbally to all of the staff and all of the families. We were blessed in this community that with the Hughes fire, while we were very much inconvenienced and very much frightened, we were sort of untouched. And I think when you see what you see on the news for friends and family that you have that live in the other areas from the Eden fire and the Palisades fire, it makes us feel so blessed what happened. But truly, it was that together we achieve more. I hate to say it, but we do crisis fairly well in this district. I hate to think that it's because we've had so much practice over the years between fires and difficult environmental things that have happened and the pandemic, but we come together well. And as Dr. Stevenson said, I want to especially thank those people who were at the schools that were closed that volunteered to go in and substitute in the schools that were open for those that were being evacuated who live over in Castaic. So again, just taking that time. I also really want to thank everybody here at the district office. I'm not talking about the administrators. I'm talking about all of our staff that work here. We were also part of the evacuation zone. And as you know, the LA County Fire and Sheriff changed their stance on yellow evacuation warning areas. They said, if you're in a warning area, you really need to go. The district office was in that area. And to accommodate all the different substitute needs and transportation needs, we had classified staff working at home that evening until 10:30, 11:30 at night, and then back up at 4:30 in the morning. Again, working from home, but trying to get those things done, including lock-in payroll for the end of the month. So there was a lot of regular business that was being done, and they all pitched in. It was, again, keeping people safe and yet still doing the business of the school district, because we did have several schools that were still in session and weren't in any area. And then the last thing I want to do is I want to thank my folks at Helmers, my primary teachers in grades kindergarten, first and second. Last week, I got the opportunity to spend most of the morning with them, and we were working on writing, and it has become a really collaborative, how do I say, customized event, because it's not just a standard workshop that is being presented, but it turns into a, well, I've tried this, what do you think about that? Pull out a sample, and now we're going off into the next direction. And the team at Bridgeport, grades 3 through 6, had another wonderful day with them. It's the second of 3, I think, that I'm doing with them, or 4. And this was the third of 4 with Helmers. So it's just wonderful when any of us gets a chance to be at the school sites, but to really get to do the things that we went into education for, which is teaching and learning, right? When we get to have those opportunities, and it's not a management piece, and it's just fun to, kind of spitball how we could turn a 6th grade project into a more aligned with what they were learning and more what they wanted to do, and talking with them more. And then, not only the ideas that or the questions they asked me and the ideas that I brought, but then how those ideas then prompted ideas within the group, and then how the group changed. And I think we came up with a really cool project for Black History Month. So, and it met their needs, which is nice. So thank you to all of them for their great work.
Great. Moving on to our board, Mr. Watson.
Thank you. Thank you all very much for your comments this evening. It was mentioned several times. I do just want to make mention myself of our community, our Saugus district's community response to the Hughes fire. I know a couple of weeks prior, we all kind of watched as our neighbors to the south were absolutely devastated. And so to have a fire spark up in our community was really, really scary. And I want to express sincere gratitude to district staff as well as our school staff, both certificated and classified, for stepping in and doing what was needed, whatever was needed. Very grateful that our students and staff and families that were affected had the support of our district team, as well as those that that stepped in to fill in where it was needed. I don't want to move on without mentioning our first responders, many of whom it seems like hadn't even had a chance to get a shower after being deployed at the Palisades fire or the Eaton fire before they were redeployed up here. So grateful for their service. We heard from Mrs. Littell Painter this evening, and Mr. Clement, thank you for acknowledging it and that we're working on it. Dr. Hawkins, Dr. Stevenson, I know the two of you are working very hard on the issue. If you would please keep us posted. It is certainly important to all of us. We do appreciate how our families do get drawn to that, as well as our other programs, especially during this time. This era that we're living in, where families have the opportunity to choose the school that they attend. Lastly, and at a very mild risk, I want to pay homage to an educator who never taught in the Saugus Union School District this evening, but our community lost a great one. Excuse me. About 3 weeks ago, Doug Worley passed away. If you attended Saugus High School in the 70s, 80s, 90s, or 2000s, you knew Doug Worley. Even when his primary job was the baseball coach. Between kindergarten and college, I attended school for 20 years. On my bookshelf at home, I have one textbook and one notebook. My notebook is my strategy notebook because I took strategy with Doug Worley at Saugus High School. He was a great educator, a great coach, a great mentor, and a great man. And so, Mr. Worley, we want to say thank you and God bless you. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Trunke?
I will also add my thanks and admiration to our cabinet and district staff for their leadership and quick action during the Hughes fire. I know emergencies like that can always throw up roadblocks, but you were able to navigate them and support everyone in the district admirably. Thank you very much. And congratulations to our principals award winners tonight. And that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Cooper?
Thank you to Ms. Messina and Ms. Boyden and Ms. Frost for coming out and saying nice things about what's going on tomorrow night. I'm also excited. I know maybe a little nervous because, you know, as was pointed out, the whole conversation may not be completely comfortable, but that's okay because better to talk about it than to not talk about it. And thank you to the cabinet and the superintendent for putting that together for us. Thank you for setting up the behavior council, bringing lots of different people together to, you know, brainstorm, hopefully come up with new and creative ideas. Because, you know, we all want the kids to succeed. We want all of the kids to succeed. And so as I pointed out earlier, the, you know, no, never mind, I'm not gonna. Anyways, thank you to the district office for being so proactive during the Hughes fire. My office is just right up the street, so I was in the morning zone too and closed early. So thank you for taking the, you know, the safety of our kids into account. Thank you to the teachers, classified staff, everybody that just really stepped up. Ms. Littell Painter, thank you for coming to speak. And, you know, like Mr. Watson said, I know that they're working hard on it and it's difficult, but as you were talking, I just thought, you know, when my kids were in school, I did not attend a single board meeting. I was just completely overwhelmed with working and kids. And so I applaud you for making the effort to come out here and yeah, so thank you for coming out tonight. Really appreciate that. And I also wanted to say to Ms. Valdez that pointed out that you guys are meeting with the legislators. I'm so grateful for that because for them to hear it directly from you is even more meaningful than when they hear it from us. So hopefully they will listen to you. So take care. That's it for me.
Mrs. Grease?
I think I'll be quick, but again, like most of the speakers, want to remind the community that we do have the behavioral meeting tomorrow at Bridgeport. I think it is really important for people to attend. It took us 2 years to do this. It took a lot of speakers to come out and share their stories, a lot of teachers to get the confidence to speak up and to demand change and to demand that this gets addressed, however it gets addressed, but at least to be able to have a conversation about the behavioral issues at SUSD. So I am really excited about this. If it goes great, if there's difficult conversations, it's not just about telling the community everything that we're doing right, but it's also addressing the things that we're not. It makes us normal and human, and it's part of the job, and it's what we were elected to do, as a reminder. So again, tomorrow at Bridgeport, I think it's at 5:30. Thank you. So thank you to everyone that made that happen, cabinet, the public, teachers, students. And then to Ms. Littell, thank you for coming and speaking up. I echo my colleagues and just wanting to get an update on what happens from here on out and making sure that we're addressing the problems of what's being identified. And I think that's it. Thank you.
All right, and the board did such a wonderful job. They covered everything I would have talked about, but just a couple things. I also wanted to thank the staff, or sorry, the Dr. Hawkins and everyone in the district for all the work they did with the fires that were going on in the community. I know from a parent perspective, I received all the parent communication. I felt I felt like I was in the know of everything that was going on. I felt comfortable. And even though it was a scary time, I think they did a really phenomenal job of just making sure that everybody was in the loop of what was happening. And I appreciate everybody that stepped up to, to do whatever needed to happen. I work in an organization, same thing, where when something happens, there's an emergency, you just act. And sometimes, it's hard to do that. But I think everybody did a really good job and communicated really well. So thank you for that. And then I also wanted to thank our speakers today and for encouraging people to participate in our behavior discussion tomorrow. I think it's important for, to get a variety of perspectives, parents, to have our teachers there, to have just different people who have had experiences with behavior. I'm excited to hear that conversation and to hopefully get some really good takeaways and things that we can do differently, better, whatever it may be. So thank you. And then thank you for everyone that shared, positive comments. I know usually we speak up when there's something bad to say most of the time, but I think there were a lot of really positive comments, and I appreciate that because there are a lot of good things happening. And while we are not perfect and there's always room for improvement, I appreciate that people recognize the efforts that are going on and that we really, we hear you and we're trying to do something. So thank you so much to everybody who had something really great to say. Appreciate it. All right, moving on to consent calendar. Are there any items to remove from the consent calendar? No? Okay. Moving on to approval of items removed from the approval of the consent calendar. Can I get a motion and a second, please?
Move to approve as is.
Second.
Great. Do we have any comments on any of the items? Okay, let's go ahead and vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes. Okay, moving on to presentations. We have a student enrollment projection presentation from Mr. Nick Heinlein.
It's from me, but I'm bringing in Mr. David Cates. You may recognize him from last year. He is with a company called MGT. It used to be Demographics. They've been doing our forecasting for many, many, many years. And he's going to tonight walk us through our report for this year and answer any questions.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good evening. Thank you. Appreciate the opportunity to speak with you tonight. I'm going to see if I could share my screen. Just give me a moment here and get the PowerPoint started. and then share. All right. And let me know if you can see that. Okay. PowerPoint. Is it up there
No.
or not? Not yet. Sorry, let me try screen share. Is it there now?
Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you. Yes. Good evening. Again, I've been presenting to your board. I think this is maybe my third or fourth consecutive year. As Nick mentioned, that we have transitioned over. We were Davis Demographics for 30 plus years. Now we're MGT, but we essentially do the same work and the same reports. Maybe it might look a little different with some of our formatting or whatnot, but it's essentially the same. And I'm not sure how many of you have heard me before, but I'll walk you through our process and be happy to answer any questions you might have. So here we go. So everything that we do, we call it using spatial data. It's GIS, Geographic Information Systems. Everybody probably in the room there has used it. As I give examples on your phone, when you punch in an address to where you want to go on your phone or on your computer, and it finds the location and then it ties it in the best routes to get there. That's actually mapping or geocoding, what it's called. And we do the same thing for all of your students. We know where they are in real location. So I'll be showing and sharing some of that with you. Each year we update your data with new student data each October snapshot date. We also visit and call and contact active development, speak with the city and the county on future projects as well. Do that every year. Fold these into a forecast as we look into recent trends as well. We look out 7 consecutive years. We look back about 3 or 4 years of historical data and moving ahead 7 years. And we look at specific factors that are going on within your district area. And I'm going to share those with you as well. Kind of take you behind the curtains here. So this is our kind of our methodology or our flow chart of how we do our forecasting. So if you has like 3 pillars or columns here. The first one says birth factors. We look at historical birth data that's available every year from the Sacramento. We could go back as many as 20, 30 years if need be. We also, use that data to estimate your future transitional kindergartners and kindergartners, because that's always the kind of unknown. They're just kind of enter your district, and we look at trends, and that's how we estimate the kindergarten classes and a little bit, and especially next year when transitional kindergartner will be a full 12-month grade, we'll be able to really hone in and get those a little more exact as well. The middle column, mobility factors, that's where we look at your historical data. We'll look at trends with 4 years of data, and we look at 1 year to the next. Trends as the students transition. Do you gain kids? Do you lose kids in certain areas? I'll share that with you as well. That's a contributing factor to areas with no growth, meaning established areas in your district, which there are many. And then at the end there is where we tie in the new development. We apply what we call student yield factors to estimate numbers of students coming into your district each year from the new housing. And that all gets folded into our student forecasts. We also have access to things like updated parcel data from the county, aerial imagery. We track all that. We can look back several years and look at the dirt is moving for new development or how many new frames have gone up. So if we don't see them in person, we can look at them in pretty good, going back, I think, within just a few months of our research. So it's pretty much up to date. So let's show you some of the student data or the processes we go with your student data. As I mentioned, early October, we used to be called seabeds date or snapshot date in early October. We collect your data. We send it back in a form of a data verification form for the district to sign off. Does this look correct for each school, for each grade, for each type of designation there is? And if it's correct, literally gets signed off, and we begin the process of what we mentioned called geocoding. And those dots you see there, those are examples of 4 different years of data, different colored things. So you can kind of see we could really look down to the neighborhood level and see what's going on specifically in certain neighborhoods of your district. And then on the right, the far right, you see we've divided your district up into 219 neighborhoods that we call study areas. And they have like a number letter codes, unique identifiers. And that's the lowest level that we look at. Those are the building blocks of your current boundaries, and in some cases, your future boundaries if you change them. So we know at the individual neighborhood level, we know the attendance zone level, and we also start at the district-wide level as well. Other nice things that we could do once we map the data, this gives you a general idea of the concentration of where the students are in your district. I've overlaid the boundaries of your attendance areas. You can see like the West Creek Academy has got a very dense area up there, of all those new developments out there. And there's other little pockets out in Plum Canyon, down near Rio Vista as well. But you can see that, there's a lot of part of your district that there are very little or no students just because they're up in the mountains, more rural, or maybe it's industrial. And then you can kind of see that little area off to the left there under where it says Castaic Junction, that kind of blue, starting to turn red cluster. That's the new developments that are happening in the Five Points Valencia that have been happening for a number of years now. We also include in our reports each year what we call an attendance matrix. So what this is, when you read down these columns, the very last number at the bottom, those are the numbers you're really familiar with. As of early October, Bridgeport had 866 total enrolled students. And then you can see those numbers at the bottom. The part that we add to the mix, when you look at the rows, again, all the students are mapped to where they live. Not every student goes to the school in which they live in the boundary. So you can see Bridgeport had 797 students, TK6 students living in its boundary as of October 2nd. And of those, 682 went to Bridgeport. And then you could just read down here, see 4 of the Bridgeport students came from Cedar Creek boundary, 16 from Emblem. So you can kind of see where the kids are. It's your open enrollment. Obviously there's parent choice where they want to enroll their students, as long as you give them the transfer permits to go there. This is that snapshot. This is showing you where they're going to, where they're coming from. And then here's the distribution of your essentially out of district students and the schools that they're assigned to. So it gives you, again, just little perspective of the students that are these are all within your district, where they're going. If you read it out here, you can see that 35 Bridgeport area students parents choose them to go to Helmers. And some of these might be special programs or I'm not sure why, but you can see there's some good little pockets of transfers going on in your district. We also have a little summary page afterwards that just kind of takes the same information that's on that previous page. Remember the 797 resident students versus 866 enrollment. You can see the in and the outs and the rates. So it's kind of a quick summary, one-stop look at kind of what's happening in the district, what schools might be exceeding their capacities or getting close to them based on the enrollment versus the residents. Sometimes there's some pretty dramatic differences, like in Mountain View, 700 about residents, but 917 enrolled at that school, and so on. So let's look in a little bit more into the factors that go into our forecast. We update these every year. This is that birth data I told you about. It's available at the zip code level. And so you can see we have kind of the baseline here. This represents this last October, which the students were born more or less 5 years earlier. These are for the kindergartners. These for estimates and how we do the kindergartners. So you can see this is the baseline. This is more for historical purposes. So you can see the trends in your zip codes and then adding them all up, what's been happening. The good news I could say, because I don't see this, I'll say this about a lot of districts in California, is there is in future years some higher grade groups of children that were born in your zip codes for the next 4 or 5 years to come. That means when we do our birth rates, anything above 100 means there's going to be an uptick. We're estimating next year. Some could be a little bit of development, but these are ones that were born in your area. You could see 4 or 5 years ago, the numbers were 1500s, 1600s, and so dropped down this year. So there was kind of a dip there, but it started to pick up and getting back to 1600, and that could represent the 2027 kindergarten grades. So those get applied in there as well. You can also see some of the capture rates, which I'm going to show you on a chart. Historically, essentially the number of, as I told you, in your combined zip codes, the numbers of what was 5 years earlier to what was enrolled. And hardly any district gets 100%, but when you get in the 65, 70% or above, it's a pretty good capture rate. But you can kind of see it's up and down a little bit, but it's kind of been in the 1 year was pretty high, but it's in the 65, 70, 77. And this is for this year, went up to 71%. And we're estimating that it's going to go up a little bit percent each year for the next 4 or 5 years based on the data that we have. The other factor, if you remember, this is that middle one. This is the mobility factors. These are really, really important factors in how we do our modeling. Because remember, these do not include any new development. We exclude those steady areas I showed you earlier, all the ones that have had any development, let's say in the last 5 years, substantial development. So we're trying to look in each of the attendance areas and what's happening in each of those zones. For each one of your elementary schools, you can see the blue is essentially meaning a gain. It's above 1. So K to 1 is a very typical, when we do this, almost always above 1. That means that you gain, let's say in Bridgeport's area, the 1.04 means if they had 100 kindergartners 1 year, the next year you'll have 104 first graders. So almost all the numbers here for all the schools are above 1. That is because not all the parents choose to enroll their kids in kindergarten. They could be a daycare at home. It's not necessarily a required grade. So you get that uptick K to 1. And then you could see there's a lot of blue here. That's another good sign for your district. These are parents that are choosing to move into your district and bring those kids to your district over the last 3 or 4 years. Remember, I told you we look at the last 4 years. So we dropped out whatever it was, 2020 and we brought in 2021. Next year, 2024, I should say, sorry. So we drop out the oldest year, bring in the newest year. So we're getting refreshes every year on this. This essentially deals with housing resales, apartment migration. Even, if they go to a private school or they come back from a private school or they go out to a private school where they're not in your district, that's also could be some of the reasons why the numbers are below 1. But to be honest with you, when you see a 0.99, 0.98, 0.97, these are very high numbers still. It's really almost a push. You can kind of see the averages here at the bottom that you're more or less net gaining here. A 0.99 means you go from 100 kids 1 year to 99. It really is not. It's virtually a flat, straight pass through. But I just want to be clear to you, this is very good. I don't typically see this, especially this day and age, because people always equate new students just by new housing. And they miss the point that that's maybe only half, maybe even sometimes less than half where you get your students. It's the turnover of the students moving in from the resales. Some years you might have a lot of turnover, some years maybe not so much, but that's where this factor gets in there. And we apply these to all the zones, and I'll show you how these show up in the forecast. One little note here, and this is going to probably change next year once we're about 5 years past, that most of the West Creek Academy boundary has had a lot of development, makes up the majority. That's why you saw that very dense area on the map. If the numbers are too high, get skewed because of the development. Sometimes I've been doing this for a number of years, use a neighboring zones trends And we applied that to West Creek. If I showed you what was really happening in West Creek because of that development, it really shoots it up. But we will, but these are reasonable numbers near it. It's still gaining kids. And maybe next year or so, I'll take a look again. If there's enough distance beyond the last move-ins, then the numbers will kind of regulate down just a little bit. But that's the only area I had to make a little adjustment to, but we've been doing that. Now we're going to be talking about folding in the new kids from development. So we periodically, every 2 or 3 years, go and try to update the student yield factors. What historically has been happening, because we've been doing this now for over 30 years, especially the last 10 years or so, as we update these every few years, the numbers have been dropping. You're just getting less kids than you used to. This number, if I went back, okay, let me back up here. SFD stands for single family detached homes. So these are typical single family homes. A 0.391 means for every 100 of those they build, you're going to gain 39 kids roughly. Okay. And single family homes always will have the highest yields. MFAs are like multifamily attached, like condos, townhomes, maybe detached condos, and apartments, which they haven't built a heck of a lot in your area or the county. That's the rental areas. But these single family homes are what generate the most kids numbers wise. But remember, they build a lot of condos as they've been doing out in the 5 Points area. So they could build a large number of these, which still could generate students. What we decided to do this year, working with Nick as well, we did a deeper dive in the areas in what used to be called the Mission Village or the 5 Points area that they've been building. It's been building now for about 3 or 4 years. So we have a much larger sample size now to look at than when we did this last time. And to be really honest with you, we had higher numbers, and I think actually these were the numbers we used for that region. And when we did the deeper dive, we found this was more realistic what was coming out of those housing developments that feed into Bridgeport. We overprojected Bridgeport last year, probably by at least 100 kids because of this situation. And what's happening, it's not that they're not students there. Unfortunately, a lot of them are choosing to go to Newhall School District. And we have that information as well. So we're able to share that. And we had to temper down because when we're doing forecasts, we are trying to forecast your students. So with that trend, because the school might be closer to them than maybe your school, that's what the parents have been choosing. So we introduced a newer, lower set of single family and more importantly, the condo numbers here. This is more realistic what's happening. It might even be a little lower, but we didn't want to go too much lower. This is what we found was happening in those. I think there's about 500 or 600 of those units now in your district. Makes it a lot better sample size and gives us a more realistic kind of reading of what's happening in that community. The rest of your district, we still applied these other rates. So for the projects in Tesoro de Valle that are coming, that's fully in your district. You're going to capture, I'm going to hope, almost all those kids. When you're doing the borderline here between the boundary line between Newhall and Saugus, that was the wild card that we had to kind of wait and see what happens. But we figure let's not shortchange those other projects. Let's kind of keep them realistically where the numbers will be, because you will retain those kids because they're fully within your district boundaries. This is a snapshot from our report of the projects that I have included within your 7-year forecast. So just quick little summaries. This equates to about 20 different projects. I didn't print it on this PowerPoint, but in the report on pages 12 and 13, we do list the projects and the phasing of the units. But there's a total of 2,571 units between all of these projects. We're estimating over the next 7 years. Of them, 1,687 are condos and townhomes, which are the majority of the projects in here. This is the remaining units of the 5 Points, as well as the startup of the Entrada projects. Also, basically 80% of the units are in the Bridgeport boundary. And you know that Tesoro del Valle, I don't know if you want to call it phase 2 or the next coming of those units are in here. And just so you know, this right here is the 55 and older community that we do not include in our forecast. These are all, regular, if you will, non-restricted areas up here. There are a few projects you probably have noted that I have not included that's been on the books maybe for a little bit, or we've talked about. I've heard talks about Whitaker Burmite. There's the Bouquet Canyon projects. I'll speak a little bit to that, and we tend to want to be, I don't know if I want to call it conservative, but I want to be realistic. The project phasing we have in our report for the 5 Points area comes directly from 5 Points themselves. After my presentation to you last year in the summer, they provided an Excel spreadsheet to Nick of exactly what they're phasing out for the next 7 to 10 years in your district. And I have put those in the report here. So I didn't make up any of those. It is what it is. So some of it is less than what I had before because they're making adjustments to these long-term plans. The projects that I sometimes exclude are projects typically that are still in the deep planning process. Maybe they were approved. There's projects in your district in the whole valley that have been approved 20 years ago. Doesn't mean they're going to happen next year. I typically let it go out about 3 years in the report. And if I don't hear anything new really from a planner or anyone else, I will remove it just because I don't want to just overload and make you have too high of an expectation. I could run a separate forecast kind of at the high end, if you will, if you want to include some of those projects, but we typically don't because, again, this is a document that we're tied to. And, there's always speculation when it comes to development. You still have a lot of units being built. And each year, if things get a little more, mentioned or in the news, if you will, then I'll fold them back in. But that's the main reason why I don't include some of the other projects. So let's try to move along here. A few more slides. This is the district boundary, the district overall forecast. Okay. So looking at this, these are real counts of kids, the first 4 columns. These are the historical data and your current data from each October snapshot, breakdown by grade, and also we pull out the non-residents out of district students. And then these are our forecast in the blue. So this is what's impacted by the new development, these 7 years. The mobility factors are the diagonals, okay? So I told you about K to 1, 1 to 2, 2 to 3, and so on. And if you look really across your district in almost every case, there's that positive mobility. So those are people moving in, obviously from the new housing, but also from, resales and bringing younger students, which I told you is not a trend I've seen in most districts. So that's bodes very well for you in the long run. Overall, we also, the out of district kids, we just kind of roll them out at the trend that your in-resident students go. So as those go up, these go up. If they go down, these go down. There's not real science to this. And then at the bottom here, you can kind of see this is what's happened the last 3 years. You probably have net gained about 25 kids. And that's with the TK program growing, okay? We estimate about a growth of about net growth 278 this next year. Part of that is the not 2 month, but 3 month increase in TK to get it to the full 12 months. You're one of the better districts I've seen in retention in our estimates. So these numbers have held pretty true, but you're never going to get a number close to K. And even K usually is lower than the other grades too, participation. But you've got a pretty high participation rate from what I could tell, telling you my experience with other districts in California. And I feel pretty confident in these forecasts, even though they might be a little lower than they were last year. But I've told you that's a lot of it is because of the adjustments to the 5 Point project to be more in line with what that company says. So here's kind of just looking at it in a graphical form with the chart here of the growth. We are showing growth for your district, net growth up here of almost 900 kids. So that's maybe equivalent of another elementary school, if you will, or filling up the schools that have room, if you will. But overall, we're estimating close to a 10% increase just based on these projects that we're including. And this gives you another perspective of where the growth is happening. It might be a little deceiving here. I mean, this is definitely happening red because there's a lot of growth because of all those developments in the Bridgeport, Entrada, 5 Points. The areas in orange were showing growth, but that's a 1 to 189. So some of this more rural area might just have a net growth of 1 or 2 kids. But still, the orange and the red is where we're expecting growth. Gray is flat, same amount. And the green is kind of slightly declining or declining areas. These are the study areas color coded for the next 7 years. And just to sum things up, again, I point out positive mobility. That's very good for your district. This shows that coupled with the new housing development, you've got strong stability. Coming up, the birth rates again are trending upward, which again is not a trend I see typically in other districts. So there could be, even though you took a dip maybe this year, you'll start to see a little bit higher kindergarten and obviously TK in the next few years to come. These are, I mentioned the number of units that are building in we're estimating in the district. And these are the counts, the net growth at 894, 10%. One little note, I did this on a little side project for Nick, but just to let you know, if there's no development, literally none of that development I showed you happens, you're still going to grow based on the birth rates and the mobility up to another 300 kids over the next 7 years. So that's good news. You know, I'm delivering a lot of not good news to a lot of districts, but that's good for you. And some nice, and I like to hope to think that those are happening because the parents are choosing your district to send their kids to your schools. That's why they're moving in. So that's always something I want to point out when I see definitely positive mobility going on. And that's it. And I will be happy to answer any questions if you're still awake. It's hard to see from here, but.
Does the board have any questions?
Yes, please. Mr. Cates, thank you so much. Appreciate your work. Appreciate the good news. You mentioned that you've been doing this with us now directly for a few years, and your company's been doing it for about 30 years.
Right.
When conducting these types of projections and predictions, it's always exciting to go back and check your numbers. You know, the projected versus actual as a few years go by. How accurate has your team found their projections to be historically?
Well, if I did double check even before I came on today, because I know I do this, right? When we run our forecast the first time internally, I always go back to look and see how did we do last year? You know, always how, projecting for this year. We projected a little high this last year, and like I explained during the presentation, I think that's because we had too high of yields for the development happening in Bridgeport. Mm-hmm. All the other zones, if you go back and do your comparisons from last year's report to this report, we pretty much nailed most of them. But to be honest with you, we overprojected Bridgeport, and that's why after I'm looking, and we also overprojected a little bit on the TK. But that's normal. It's been happening because it's kind of educated guessing. You have to get inside parents' heads to know. We look at last few years' trends, roll those out. I will say again, yours tend to be closer than some of the other districts I do, but we were off on the TK a little bit and we're off on Bridgeport. So otherwise, we were right on the mark. If you really go far back, which I haven't done a little bit, and you look at, 7 years ago, what'd you show for us now? I could do that, but I'll just to give you the general statement that I typically do. We aim for and usually try to hit plus or minus 1 to 2%. That's our goal. I think we're, again, a little high, but I explained kind of why and how that happened. I think, especially now that, again, the long-term units that we got directly from 5 Points, if they build what they say they're going to build, of course, that's a big guess, then I feel maybe that that's why I feel more confident in our longer term forecast in this report than maybe previous. Because I'll be honest, some of these developers don't share a lot of that detailed stuff. They keep it close to the vest. Some are nice enough to share it. The timing sometimes isn't always the best. Sometimes they come out after I'm done, you know. But I did use last June's forecast by them, and I hope hasn't changed that much. So I have pretty good confidence in this particular set, I think, of numbers.
Fantastic, thank you. And I'm going to give you a pass on the miss on Bridgeport. I understand why that is, and I'll get to that in just a moment. But moving in a different direction, as you know, we made the difficult decision to close a school in our district just this past year. And how are the students that were previously enrolled at Santa Clarita counted in slides 7 and 8? In accordance with the schools that they're attending now? Are they considered now residents of that school, even though it's a small handful of different schools, or are they considered transfers in?
Sorry, go ahead, Nick. I didn't mean to interrupt.
I was just going to say, for the current year, the students that lived in that area are in Helmer's numbers. And then for next year, they're in Foster's numbers.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So to be specific, remember, this is a snapshot as of October 2nd. So as of October 2nd, remember Helmer's, I know you just said it, Nick, but I always get mixed up. It was Helmer's this year, right? Or
yes.
Did I say it wrong? Okay. So this is the column. The enrollment in Helmer's was 524. You can see there where they were kind of coming from in big batches from different areas. So again, that's where you kind of can determine where they're coming from. Next year, yeah, they'll move. Now, again, this is maybe more of a question to direct to Nick, because if they're being moved to another school, I don't know if they're required to move. Maybe parents like being at Helmer's and they stay. So you're kind of changing or tweaking a little bit the open enrollment patterns. But it'll look a little different next year when it kind of settles into its more permanent boundaries.
Okay, so this year, all of them were considered residents of one school. Next year, all of those same students, even though they don't change, will be considered residents of another.
Right, right. Well, technically, okay, I'm trying to remember, Nick. Again, I'm sorry. Next year, they are the boundary. It's Helmer's contains boundary-wise that area. I think am I right or wrong on that?
You're right.
Okay, so that's the other way to look at this, is reading across, kind of where their schools are choosing to go to. So yeah, again, you're adjusting your open enrollment a little bit, so it'll look a little different this year and next year. But yes, unfortunately, there's no column for Santa Clarita because that school doesn't have it's not open, it's not a boundary.
Right. And so when you look across, you see the big number 687. That includes the students that also live in the Santa Clarita area. And then you can see when we offered them whatever school they would like to go to. That's why you see some of the big numbers like a West Creek and everything.
Okay.
One other question before you move from this slide. Can you explain if more students are coming into our district than leaving?
Not necessarily this is the ones you're saying from outside your district?
Right.
These,
so see, we have 8,712 resident students,
Correct.
right? And then we have an additional 479 coming from outside the district.
Correct. So to answer that one, that's these numbers here. So if you look backwards, these are the out-of-district kids for the last 4 years. These are the resident kids. These are real numbers. And then this is them moving forward. So it's kind of been a little up and then down and then up again. And as far as the out-of-districts go. And then you could see that, I don't know, you had a drop, I don't know why, but in 22, but you're pretty much been about the same level of resident students, 21, 23, and 24. And again, you've had some development coming in, but you know, the other thing you got to look at, I didn't point this out, but I should have. Whenever I do a forecast, I always like to look at the first 4 columns because these are real counts, real kids. If you notice, there's kind of a trend here, and it's been going on most districts in California, and that is, especially if you were a K-12 district, if you look at the whole valley, you'd really see this. But the larger grades are now in 6th, 7th, 8th, all the way through 12th. And for a number of years now, it's been smaller kindergarten class sizes coming in, being as the 6th grade in your district drops out, graduates out, then the new ones coming in have been smaller. They're not, that much smaller, but you could kind of see by looking down the columns that they tend to be a little bit smaller here, which means essentially that you're going to be declining. But again, because of the mobility, people moving in, and the new developments, that's why we're expecting the next few years to start seeing some growth coming back into your district.
It was mentioned earlier this evening, our TK and Kinder enrollment kickoff. Do we still call that a roundup? Or is that an old, I'm old, never mind. But how soon do we start engaging families? I mean, I'm sure we probably don't send congratulation baskets to the hospital. But are we, sharing any welcome to the neighborhood stuff for new families that move in? And how soon are we engaging families prior to them coming of school age?
I think we have some outreach that happens in our preschool. We have our state preschool. We have our preschool families at Bouquet. I know last year when enrollment happened, we did some signage, we did some advertisement posts. But in terms of really having, I guess what you call, what I kind of grew up with in knowing, like the kindergarten roundup right now. It wouldn't be kindergarten, it'd be TK, because those are our newest learners. It is a little bit different because it is digital. I don't know specifically what happens at the school sites, but as district wide, we don't necessarily have those roundup meetings for our families.
Okay. But are we doing any kind of, hey, we know there's a 3-year-old that lives at that home, and kind of identify them psychologically as a Saugus student?
I don't believe we are identifying 3-year-olds currently, or engaging with the families that may potentially, have 3-year-olds coming to our schools. Mostly the engagement we have is with our preschool and our state preschool, families who have siblings here already.
If I could just add on a little bit too, I know that at our district like DLAC meetings that we have, we get a pretty large crowd, and it's a good way for us to talk to our families about talking to their neighbors and talking to others. So that is something that we do annually.
Yeah, that is certainly very helpful. Thank you. So going back to that 5-point development, I've had several conversations, and I know that those different developments have slowed significantly. They're just not building as quickly as they initially anticipated. They're not selling their earlier phases as fast as they hoped, so they're not building those later phases. And then, you say that some of the families that are moving into that area they're choosing Newhall School District because it's closer. I get it. It's a long way from Magic Mountain to Bridgeport, especially at 8 o'clock in the morning. So I don't know if this is a question for staff or if it's just a rhetorical question for the board, but where's the tipping point of when do we want to start talking about maybe building in that area versus letting families continue to choose Newhall?
Building?
I don't know.
The school?
It's a long way from.
So, the district has their piece of property earmarked in the Entrada development, which has not yet started, right? So whenever that gets going, we'll have that discussion at that point. But those homes over there, like David was showing, it takes 5 of them to give us 1 student. Is there 500 or 600? So, it's about 100, between 100 and 120 students so far. And And then of those students that are generated, I think 6% come here and the other 14% go to Newhall, correct? I think those are the numbers we looked at. So
yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
yeah, the generation rate of the homes are less, and then of those students, then we lose that percentage to Newhall, if I'm making any.
Yeah, so it's not just the raw, okay, there's 100 kids there that we could capture immediately. So we're still a long ways off.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. All right. That's all I've got. Thank you.
Mr. Drunky.
Well,
I don't have any questions. I just want to say thank you for the additional information of the developments that you know of that are not listed in your report, because I think it's important for us to have a handle on where those might be, even though they may be, or maybe more pie in the sky than even some of the ones that are in your report. So thank you for giving us that extra information.
Sure.
Thank you. Ms. Cooper,
I don't have any questions, but thank you for the information.
Thank you.
Mrs. Grease.
I have a couple, but I don't know who to direct this to, but boundaries, who creates, or how do the boundaries get established, especially when you look at the boundary that goes across the 5 freeway?
Like the district boundaries?
I guess if that's what you want to call it.
Mr. Watson, were you part of the county committee on boundaries? Was that you?
Not between the districts, no.
Oh, okay.
No, I just, day job, have a vested interest.
Yeah.
Mrs. Solomon and Newhall is on that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
There's a committee at the county level that deals with that.
And what was the deciding factor decision to extend our boundaries to across the 5 when it's closer to Newhall?
That probably is a really
That's not an us question?
no, that's like a historical question. And I think throughout our not so long history, there's definitely been times where the district has given territory to other districts. But I don't know why it goes right over there. I don't know if it has to do with the land that was owned by a certain developer at the time. I have no idea.
Are we concerned of it being so far and hearing that we're only going to take a certain amount of kids from that area because it's closer to
I
Newhall?
think we're only concerned because the development is playing out differently than was originally planned. Like if we had a school over there right now, I'm sure that they would choose to come to us because that school would be closer than the one in Newhall. But there's been so many different phases and different types of units that have been planned over there. I just don't think it's turning out the way that anybody originally thought 20 or 25 years ago. But it's what we're having to kind of go through now.
Well, just 7 years ago,
Right.
when I was hired, I was meeting with Dr. Lucid and the developers, and you would have thought they were building it and we were going to need a school for 1,000 kids in a year. And now we probably couldn't fill a school.
Yeah, and it's been very fluid, right? Because this first phase, Mission Village, there's a school site there that is Newhall, but they haven't built that school yet because those students can go to Oak Hills. No, yeah, Oak Hills, right?
Okay.
But tentatively they were supposed to get their school built, and then we've gone back and forth with us needing a school and then not needing a school. But I think how things are right now is I don't believe they're going to build Newhall School and then they'll build our school.
So would there ever be a point in time where either one of us would say there is not enough kids for 2 schools? Either Newhall, you take it, or Saugus, we take it?
I think the developer is basically
they
saying
decide
that because they're having to pay for it.
And
Most of it.
giving away that territory gives away developers' fees and other things that come into the district that even though we might not service students, are benefit to the district. So I think it's important that we maintain those things. The years of giving away a school for $1 are over.
And then
Thank God.
I only total TK, but with the growth being from TK and K, when you extrapolate out those numbers and just look at 1 through 6, like the growth is TKK.
Correct.
So how do you address that now when this isn't finite, it's not final, but just keeping that in mind in terms of classrooms, staff, programs, dollars, like 38% of your new kids are just TK.
Well, that is definitely an issue, right? I mean, because TK and K grades really necessitate larger classrooms, right? That we wanted to take care of and remodel and build with our existing site so that we had the appropriate space for them. Those were the projects that were part of the bond that did not pass. So we're going to have to make do the best we can with having K use the typical first grade classroom and moving TK students into K rooms if there's enough. If there's not enough, then we'll have to move them into a regular 1st through 6th class.
And when do you guys start making those decisions for the next school year? Because next school year, you've got 200 just in TK alone coming.
Well,
maybe.
we will, we typically do just a very simple roll forward, right? And we will re-benchmark the TK numbers based on the additional 3 months that are coming next year. And then, you know, the other thing that's still in the air is we're supposed to go to 20-1 next year, which is going to also impact the number of classrooms that will be used. But all of it is really pushed by Michelle's division doing the TKK roundup and registering those kids in the right site so that we know where they go and what homeschool is theirs, and figuring out if we need to move them or do anything like that.
And there have been years where we're right on with, I mean, because now it's TK, but the same thing used to happen with K where we can be right on. And then all of a sudden in the summer, we have a growth that we didn't expect of, 100 kids across the district, which is a lot of kids, but isn't a lot of kids. And so unfortunately, they don't come in a nice little set of, 28 kids for a class. They come all over the district. So we've had to make adjustments. It's one of the hardest parts about staffing and planning for school districts is the unpredictability, because there is really no mechanism. People don't register when they come in and say, hey, I have a 4-year-old. They're going to be starting school. And so the outreach, the everything is challenging.
And how often do districts redraw boundary lines?
Between districts or internally?
Internally.
It just depends on what's going on. Like we really need to look at ours.
We do.
I was just gonna say, it looks like there's some schools that are severely under and then some that are over based on where they're residing.
I think the 2 most popular things for a school board to do are close schools and move boundaries. So because we have some construction that we're still doing, it's true. Because we have some construction that we're still doing at Foster, we're holding on that because I think it's important that we have the building spaces before we start to dive off into that. So I would say in the next year or 2, you'll see where we have to start looking at it, because the closed school and other things doesn't mean that the district boundaries will change, but probably the boundaries within inside of it.
But as a district, we're not sticklers to
No.
a student's homeschool versus this school that they might want to go
Yeah,
to.
I think we're much better
And I-
served doing
And
that.
I think some of the low hanging fruit with regard to boundaries is based on some weird locations that I'm thinking of some that are in Bridgeport's boundary, but they're way closer to go to, I think, West Creek. Like those might be simple tweaks where there'll probably be others that are a much harder conversation.
Do you think you guys will look at that for 25, 26 or no?
I think we need to get Foster, that 2-story finished, and kind of relook at capacity. Also relook at the available space we have for these service providers that are new, right? As
And the TK spaces.
and the TK spaces, and see really what spaces we have available at our sites before really kind of moving the boundaries
And Foster's supposed to be completed when?
this summer.
This summer. So I would say you probably wouldn't see us starting to look at it until 26, 27. Just because, like we said, next year we're fleshing out TK all the way out. We've got all the service provider pieces. We're probably going to have the 20-to-1, which means more spaces. So I think we need to have that a little more settled.
Okay.
Before we bring that to you guys to have a conversation.
Great. My only
And we could
comment
definitely
was,
help. We could help you with that as well. We do
You
a
have a
lot of
sales plug?
boundary change work. Well, you don't have to look far. If and when if Nick wants to explore something like that, we could definitely help him.
Thank you.
yeah, good sales plug. Thank you. My only comment was, it's good to see that people are still choosing to be in the district. I mean, to have 400 people that transfer here from other districts, that's pretty good, I think. So that was one of my takeaways. So thank you for your presentation.
Thank you. You have a good evening. Thank you, guys.
Too. Okay, moving on to education services. Item A, adopt resolution 2425, number 45, a resolution of the governing board of the Saugus Union School District honoring President Abraham Lincoln.
So moved.
Thank you. In a second.
Second.
And Mr. Clement?
Okay, so really, we're looking at a trifecta here of history when we look at Abraham Lincoln's birthday, which is February 12th, recognized on the 14th. And the other two resolutions go with the weekend for President's Day, that Monday, the 17th, which also recognizes Washington's birthday on the 22nd. And then right in the middle of all that, Saturday, the 15th, is Susan B. Anthony's birthday, and we recognize her as well. So those are really the three resolutions kind of tied together that I'll talk about.
Thank you.
Can I make a motion since it's the same?
I was going to
topic?
ask if you wanted to bundle
Yeah,
that.
can we
that.
bundle all three together for
You'd
one
have to
vote?
amend your.
I would amend my motion to approve this resolution to approve all three.
Same.
Second. Okay. Any further comments from the board? No? Okay, let's take a vote.
Mr. Watson?
Aye.
Mr. Trunky?
Aye.
Ms. Cooper?
Aye.
Ms. Garabay?
Aye.
And I vote aye.
Great,
Thank you.
motion passes. Okay, moving on to approval of the student housing for 25-26. Can I get a motion in a second?
Move to approve.
And this is
I'll second.
Mrs. Bear. Oh, thank you,
Who's second? Mr. Watson?
Mr. Watts. Yeah, Mrs. Berry.
Yep. Every year we bring forward our student housing, which shares which schools will be open for consideration for transfers or closed to consideration based on a variety of things. And we also set that transfer window. So if you're interested in transferring within our schools, make sure you get that application in. Between that, those are really the applications that we take a look at first. We always are accepting applications, but for those families that are really eager to get their school of choice, which you heard, we do allow parents quite a bit of choice here, that we try to honor that with those that meet the deadline. So again, this year it's February 5th through the 28th. And if the board approves this, we will move forward and start the transfer season.
Great, thank you. Board members, does anybody have any comments or questions?
Just love that so many of our schools are open for mobility.
Great, we had a motion in a second. Let's all vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Okay, moving on to the next item, approved request for tuition reimbursement after successfully completing professional development courses. Can I get a motion in a second?
Move to approve.
Second.
Thank you. And Dr. Stevenson?
All right, so our collective bargaining agreement with CSCA allows for up to $1,000 of tuition reimbursement to employees who are going to school to look for careers in education. And this is a person who's currently a paraeducator and is looking to become a slip-up with our district and then eventually wants to become an SLP.
Great. Does the board have any comments?
Hooray.
Awesome.
Great. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No, motion passes. Thank you. Moving on to business services, approve fair share school impact mitigation payment adjustment analysis. Can I get a motion in a second?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Mr. Heinlein?
This is an item we're doing every year. We do it because we have a mitigation agreement with developers so that they pay their fair share for their developments. I brought in Mr. Doug Floyd from our special tax consultants, Koppel and Gruber, and he hopefully could answer any questions. But I do want to explain something. And that is, we just heard Mr. Cates talk about student yield factors. In Doug's report, there's student generation factors. And for a long time, they used to really confuse me. But I just want to make sure that everybody is clear on the student yield factors are based on new houses and new development. So it's the ratio of how many students are coming out of houses that in his report are from 2016 to 2022. Doug's report looks at total number of different types of housing in our whole entire district, and then looks at the students and where they live, and looks at it from the district perspective, not just the new development perspective. So a lot of times I would tell people, because this used to be true, when we had a new home being built, we would get like a half of a student per home, and then as that home aged, we'd get like a quarter of a student. And that's where these two numbers come from. Because as the neighborhood gets older, we get less and less students.
Great, thank you. Does anybody have any comments? No? Okay. We had a motion and a second. Let's go ahead and vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No? Okay, motion passes. Last item, approve ratification of American Landscape, Inc. olive tree installation at Cedar Creek Elementary School. Can I get a motion and a second, please?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. And Mr. Highland?
This is to almost finish the Cedar Creek Edible Schoolyard. We actually took this work out of the main contractor's work for timing purposes, and then we needed somebody else to do it, so that's why it's coming separately.
Great. Anybody have any questions or comments? Okay, we had a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No, motion passes.
Madam President, before we move to adjourn, I just want to bring up an item for potential consideration for an upcoming agenda. I know we've been very busy the last couple of months, but back at our November 19th meeting, there was a bit of confusion among all of us here at the dais, as well as our community members, about what can and can't be done from the standpoint of public comment. If I only speak for 2 minutes, can I give 1 minute to my friend standing next to me? Or can 10 of my neighbors fill out speaker cards and I can speak for a half an hour? And so I just thought it would be a good idea if we brought that back for clarification, both for ourselves as well as our community. So if in your conversation with Dr. Hawkins, that can make an agenda coming up soon, I would appreciate it.
Noted.
Thank you.
Okay, and that concludes our meeting. Our next regular board meeting is scheduled for February 18th. And as you all know, we have our special meeting tomorrow night, behavior challenges in SUSD at 5:30 at Bridgeport Elementary. Meeting, ending the meeting at 8:43 PM. Sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. Can I get a motion? A second, move to adjourn. Sorry. I need a
Second.
script that tells me that. Sorry. Motion and a second?
Yes.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Perfect. Thank you.
I didn't hear the second one.
It was